What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some Raiders and Rams wide receiver versus DB one-on-one. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things, but also, fellas, if you are a wide receiver and would like an 8-week wide receiver gym and on-field workout schedule that you can follow, check out that very first link in the description below for our ultimate 8-week wide receiver workout plan. It's over 500 plus wide receiver drills, gym exercises, all organized with the exact sets and reps for you to do, and we give you examples of each drill and exercise so you know how to perform it, okay? So if you guys want some more information on that, check out that very first link in the description below. Let's get started with this video. So now, first route we're looking at here is from Hunter Renfrow. So Hunter Renfrow is going to be running this dig route versus an outside shade press coverage DB. So this is kind of an interesting coverage look. Usually we talk a lot about how you can run a dig versus inside shade press, but how do we run it if this DB has outside shade press? So anytime that we come up to the line of scrimmage as a receiver, we should be looking for two things on a DB to figure out my plan. Number one, we need to be looking at his leverage. So is he outside leverage? Is he head up right in front of me? Or is he inside leverage? That tells you about the coverage. When he's outside, or that tells you at least about his responsibilities. So if he's outside leverage, that means that he is trying to protect the outside. Don't let this wide receiver run to the outside. Force everything to the inside, which is where he probably has some form of help. Whether that's a linebacker dropping or whether that is a safety in the middle of the field, two high safeties, whatever the situation may be. So that's what his leverage tells me. Now, when you come off the line, it's more than just knowing his leverage. You also have to identify the distance he has between you, because that's what helps you pick your release. So you see how Renfrow, when he comes off the ball, he gives this jab to the outside. That's because this DB is right up on the line of scrimmage. Now, if he's maybe 2 to 3 yards off in outside leverage, he's probably not going to give just a quick jab because there's way too much of a gap between the two of them. What he would do is he would probably close the space, step on the DB's toes, try to close the distance between us and him. But since he's right up on the line, we don't got to do that. He did that for me. So let's just give him something quick and attack his leverage to the outside. Now, why does Renfrow do that? Since he's running an inside breaking route like a dig, why wouldn't he just take off and go run the dig? Because that's exactly what the DB wants. This DB is taught, do not give up the outside. So with our release, with our move off the ball, we got to make him think we are going to the outside. If we can sell that and we just get this DB to hesitate, even if it's just a step, that means that I did my job off the line of scrimmage and I got enough separation. So Renfrow obviously takes the inside release. Now, remember, what does this DB want to do when he's outside leverage? And this comes down to our pre-snap plan. He wants to take away the outside route and force us inside. So if we have an inside breaking route and we have outside shade press and we come off the ball and we just run away from the DB and then just break when we get to 10 yards, but this is like the angle that we take. Instead of getting upfield, we take like this inside angle and then break it off. That's not getting something we call skinny. Getting skinny is when you stay tight to the DB. And as we know, he's got help to the inside. So if you just take off and run, you're running right to the help. Now, I know this is one-on-ones. I know there's no safety help. But in a real game scenario, guys, we want to practice actual game realistic routes whenever we are in a setting like this one-on-ones. So we have to make sure that we are running it game realistic, okay? So now when Renfrow comes off the ball, you see how he gets skinny. He reassesses himself vertical. He gets hip to hip with the DB because now this DB's maybe threatened a little bit with the fade. Maybe he's threatened with an outside route. And again, this still can get us some separation in the inside route without running into the safety help in the middle of the field. So he gets skinny. Now at the break point, he uses a move called a rocker step. So a rocker step is essentially like, and it's pretty creative to use a rocker step versus outside shade press when you have an inside breaking route. There's a very creative way to do this, right? So he comes up to the ball. Rocker step is essentially where you take 2 steps at the top of the break. So instead of him just breaking off of his right foot, taking a single cut and then running the dig, he does 2 cuts. So he steps in the direction he is going to go first. So he steps inside first, fakes like he's going outside, gets some separation from the DB, and that creates a bigger gap between this DB, between the safety, and he got skinny, so he didn't just obviously run right into the safety. Because if you run right into the safety and you get separation from the DB, it doesn't matter. You're still covered by the safety. So we have to get skinny on my routes. I want to stay as tight as I can to that DB, so I get separation like this at the top of the break. Now, to sell a rocker step, obviously when a DB is lined up in man-to-man coverage, whether it is like outside shade, head up, inside shade, off man, any form of man coverage, where is his eyes supposed to be? He's supposed to be reading my hips. He's reading my body language. So on a move like a rocker step, you have to sell this move with your upper body. You see how Renfrow, when he takes this inside cut, it's inside of his frame. He's not reaching way outside of his frame. He is cutting inside of his shoulder frame. So he can push off of that cut and throw his upper body into the outside break. Did he reach a little far on this outside cut? I would say so. I think a good rule of thumb is you never want to strike the ground on your heel first. You see how his heel is hitting the ground and his toes are slapping down? That puts you in a very compromising position with your knee. But the only reason he did that is just because I felt like he didn't bring his upper body enough with the cut. A good rule of thumb that I tell people to avoid this is you want to try to have your head even with your knee. You see how his head is to the inside of his knee? You want your head even with your knee, because that means your body went with the cut, and all of a sudden that foot's inside your frame now. So now you could strike the ground, the ball of the foot, and get more explosion. And you see how when he came out of this, he slipped a little bit? That was just because he overextended with the second part of this rocker step. But I know why he overextended, because he's trying to sell it. He chooses this first cut to push. He's trying to drive. He's trying to make this DB think we're running an out route, a corner route, so we have to sell it. We just can't overextend outside of my frame. But ultimately, good job by RENFROW stepping far, selling with his hips, selling with his shoulders. I think he could have just brought it a little bit more. So that's a textbook release there. Now, guys, I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't explain to you that when we come up to the line, obviously we need that pre-snap process. We see what his leverage is and we see what the distance he has between me and him is. That's how you structure your plan. But sometimes that plan may not work, right? So this DB is a crafty individual. Sometimes you might try to attack him to the outside, and then he jumps to the inside, and he lines up head up, or he jumps to the inside shade. You have to be ready to react. We want to plan off the line. We are trying to execute the plan, but if the DB takes away our plan, we have to be able to react. So if like he does this release to the outside, and let's say this DB jumps way to the inside, we have to be prepared to put the brakes on with my right foot and take the outside release. And you have to know how to run an outside release dig. You have to know these principles, guys. So let's play this again, full speed one more time. So remember, guys, we got to have a plan. That's the mechanics of that rocker step, and always be prepared to react. Okay, so now, next route, again, we're going to be looking at from Hunter Renfrow, and he's going to be running a comeback route versus a DB who's lined up like inside shade, off man coverage, right? So you can't really see the DB at the start of the clip, but he'll enter the screen here in a second. So he gives a move, breaks this thing off, and then is able to win on that comeback route. So let's talk about this, right? So we see a DB who's lined up inside shade, off man. So like, let's say, for example, I'm going to draw it right here on the screen. So let's say the receiver is here. Let's say the DB is lined up here. Inside shade, maybe about like 8 yards. Let's say your comeback break is at 15. So if he's 8 yards away, do you really have to worry about a press release? No. You don't have to worry about a press release, but we can't, again, when we see that this DB is lined up inside shade, what's his goal with inside shade? It's pretty much the opposite of outside shade press. His goal is to prevent the inside route and force everything to the outside, which is where his help is. Now, do you think his help is a safety, or what do you think his help would be? His help would be the sideline, right? If you run out of bounds, you're out of the play, and the DB did his job. So we can't just try to run around him. You line up right here, DB's inside shade. I can't just run around because he's going to get hands and force me all the way to that sideline where I have no room to run my comeback, no room to run my fade, my out route, whatever the case may be. So what do you think we have to do? We have to attack him. We have to try to step onto his toes. We got to close the distance for 8 yards and give him a move. So now I'm not running away from him. I'm going to him. I'm quote unquote stepping on his toes. So now when he breaks to the outside, he can self-fade. He makes his DB think we're running a fade. Maybe we get him to open up a little bit, and he's able to put the brakes on. Now, after you attack his leverage to get this DB to open up, there's got to be some urgency with your route. You see how RENFROW, when he attacks him and he bursts up outside, he's fast. He's running full speed. He's accelerating. That's what gets that DB out of there. We have to do something called sell the vertical. You have to sell the fade. You have to sell the 9. And how we do that is by running full speed. We got to make sure that I maintain long strides and I don't give the route away with my pad level. I can't tell you how many wide receivers before they drop their hips into a break will raise up with their chin, they'll raise up with their chest, and that just lets the DB know. Because remember, that DB's eyes are reading the body language of us. So let's maintain the exact same pad level, stride, and speed to sell this route. So you see when he drops into this break now, what does he do? He snaps down. He drops his butt down. He brings his chest to his quad. That is how you guys are able to decelerate while you're moving with some speed. Because I tell people all the time, you got to sell the vertical. You got to sell fade. Our goal is to get this DB to open up the gate like so. But how do we change direction while I'm doing that? This is as good as it gets in terms of change of direction, guys. When you guys drop into a break, you want to trust your hips. You don't need to raise up. You don't need to start chopping your feet. You don't need to beat the drum. Trust your hips. You are literally just pretending that you are sitting into a chair. And I tell my wide receivers, you want to try to bring your chest to your quad. If you could touch your chest to your quad and you sit your butt down like you're sitting into a chair, and you do that violently, you drop your hips quickly, that is going to help you decelerate, and that is going to help you break on a dime to create separation from the DB. Because again, the DB is reacting off of us. So if I don't give the route away by slowing down, chopping my feet, raising up, and I can change direction quickly, I can eliminate any kind of wasted time at the break because I have the right mechanics. We got open, guys. Route running is all about the three phases. It's all about selling the vertical, it's all about the break point, and then it's all about being able to get out of the break point and accelerate back to the ball. If you can master that and you don't give it away, it's very, very tough to guard you. This is a great router, great example from Hunter Renfrow on how to run a comeback route. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. We always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you guys would like an 8-week wide receiver on-field workout schedule and gym workout schedule, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to get you on that. Over 500 plus wide receiver drills and gym exercises. Again, very first link in that description below. I'll see you guys next time.